Welcome to this week's episode of Cow Daily. Sorry, just put this on solo layout. Hiya. Welcome to this week's episode of Cow Daily. We're starting a little bit earlier this week. Once again, I've caught an illness, which is absolutely belter. Also, it's really hot where I am, so I'm sat with an ice pack on my feet just to keep warm. Sorry, cold. So we'll see if we can get through this whole thing for the better. So this week, what we're going to talk about is the situation in Ireland. Will there be a united Ireland? We're going to talk about Doctor Who, and we're going to talk about the local election results, specific focus around Labour, etc., of course, and also the return of positive news, which we like. Firstly, though, we're going to go straight into what's happened with Sinn Féin and Ireland. Also, I do acknowledge that there's so much for all to know, and we don't assume knowledge. So I'm going to do a little bit on the history of Ireland, and we'll come back after this.
That never took his seat or his oath of allegiance. He needs a sponsor to book a room, and that man is Islington North MP Jeremy Corbyn, who joins me now. Why are you giving a man who has shown such contempt for British society this privilege?
He's written an autobiography. It's being launched in Dublin, and he's visiting England for some days after that and attending a number of functions. And this is a press conference for the British media to quiz him about the situation in Ireland, about the peace process, about what makes him tick, about his life, about his autobiography. And it seems to me that he is a major player in the tragedy of Irish history, and therefore, why not?
This is a commercial activity, though. It's there to promote his book. He's rumoured to be getting £100,000 for it. He's not here to promote the peace mission, is he?
It's not a commercial activity in the sense that anyone's being paid for it. I certainly am not being paid anything for it. The book is actually being launched in Dublin, and he's visiting Britain, and there will be a press conference at the House of Commons. And I think those that don't want to see him in the House of Commons should think for a moment that we do want to get the peace process back on track. Sinn Féin, whatever one thinks of them, are a major player in Irish politics. Adams is a major Irish figure. Surely he has an opinion, and it doesn't have to be agreed with. It could be listened to.
Nonetheless, IRA Sinn Féin has killed many Londoners, most recently at Canary Wharf and so on. Do you not think that you are in fact jumping on the graves of those of the IRA's victims in London by giving this man this privilege?
I think the bombing of Canary Wharf was disgraceful, the loss of life was appalling, and it was a terrible thing to do and a terrible thing that happened there. And I've made that very clear all the way through. Adams is part of a process, and I think that people should listen to what he has to say, agree or disagree with him, but recognise he is part of that process. There's not going to be any peace in Ireland unless one involves the Republican movement in it.
You might think that, but Gerry Adams certainly hasn't said so, has he? He's never condemned any of the IRA's activities, and you are giving him a propaganda coup.
It doesn't mean I agree with everything that is done or said. What I'm not giving is a propaganda coup. What I'm giving is an opportunity for a discussion with him, and those people that disagree with him, why don't they come along and listen to what he has to say, argue with him if they will, but at least get the process going. We need peace in Ireland. Peace in Ireland involves all parties.
Jeremy Corbyn, thank you very much indeed.
So first thing that strikes us about that video is how polite the interviewer was with them. There was tougher questions, but it was very polite. That video was from the 1980s, and it was around about the time that Corbyn, all of the stuff about Corbyn's in the raw and all this kind of thing, that's around about the time that that was happening. Just to give you a bit more of a historical context, there's something called the Armalite and ballot box strategy of the Irish Republican movement, and it's from around about that time. So check this out. So it was first formulated by Sinn Féin organiser Danny Morrison, who incidentally I've actually exchanged emails with about a completely unrelated matter. I'm not on the raw though. At the party's Ardfeis annual conference on the 31st of October 1981, when he said, "Who here really believes we can win the war through the ballot box? But will anyone here object if with a ballot paper in this hand and an Armalite in the other, we take power in Ireland?" It goes on. In the longer term, the Armalite and ballot box strategy had two important potential consequences, each of which fed into the emergent Northern Ireland peace process. When the governments of the UK and Ireland drafted the Anglo-Irish Agreement, this convinced many in Sinn Féin that it was possible to make political gains without violence. However, the electoral setbacks suffered by Sinn Féin, such as the loss of 16 of the party's 59 council seats in 1989, pushed the emphasis of the Republican movement away from the Armalite from the IRA and towards an election-focused strategy, obviously with Sinn Féin. I shall bring my good friend in, Alice Wolfe. So in terms of the history of Ireland and whatnot, what do you think of that? Like, were you aware of these things?
No, is the short answer. I think we've talked about Northern Ireland on this live stream before, and I think I'm kind of at a stage now where I'm re-educating myself about pretty much everything, not just about Ireland, but about stuff that we were taught in history, because we just know that it was completely inaccurate. And, you know, I grew up in the 80s as well, where a lot of the, kind of events that, he's talking about sort of happened. I've worked in the Metro Centre before, where we used to have, to have bomb drills and stuff like that. And it's just amazing how much of, kind of what British colonization has actually done to Ireland, and the damage that was done, and how many centuries it's been going on for. We're just completely omitted. I mean, I remember being told that the Irish potato famine was caused solely by a fungal spore that made the crops fail, which I do know is yes. Yes.
Well, I'm actually working, like, I'll just cut in a little minute. I'm actually working on this particular thing for a section of the book. So I would maybe go as far as to say genocide, but wait till the book comes out.
No,
absolutely. In all its ingloriousness.
And it's quite shocking, like, kind of like how blatant it is, and just like how much we don't know about this stuff. That was really interesting watching that clip with Jeremy Corbyn there as well. And kind of hearing the thing that, he's saying, we do need to talk and everything like that. He's basically saying, we do need to kind of have negotiations. We need to have things on the table. And I think at the time, that's when, kind of the Conservative government, obviously Thatcher was all, we don't negotiate with terrorists. We don't negotiate with terrorists. What we do know now is that they were having, so Jeremy Corbyn was kind of accused of all of this and that, but actually, the government were having talks with them as well, but doing it in secret, because they didn't want to, after everything they'd told the British public, didn't want to give the illusion, I don't know, of colluding with them, or, or any, they were trying to give this appearance. But of course you do.
Well, it was Thatcher's that don't negotiate with terrorists, whilst behind the scenes they were negotiating with terrorists.
Yeah, they were doing that. And then obviously that kind of got, obviously Jeremy Corbyn during the more recent general election, he got thrown with all of that, when actually there were many parties speaking to Sinn Féin to try and get the peace process going, which was absolutely what was needed. If you grew up in the 80s, if you grew up in Northern Ireland, it was needed very much so.
Very much so.
To stop what was happening.
Oh, no doubt about it. I often wonder, like, what would, if Mo Mowlam was still alive, like how she would have addressed and dealt with the whole sort of Corbyn's in the raw smear, like, because she was there. She was, like, in some respects with him. Corbyn was the point of that spear, and she came in after him, and she's been given much of the credit, and rightly so, in some respects, for the Good Friday Agreement and everything that came after. Whereas realistically, as we've just seen there, I mean, I only found that video clip today when I was researching this, and I thought I've got to get that in, because it demonstrates like a different sort of interaction between Corbyn and the media. They're actually giving him time to get his answers out. They ask a question, back it comes, and it's as much as it was like tough questioning.
Yeah,
it wasn't like what came more recently in recent like sort of like UK media history, which was everything we know it to be. So it seems to me, anytime anything gets close to being in power, that's got any kind of progressiveness attached to it, it gets attacked. But here's the thing: Sinn Féin are Sinn Féin. There's now you can really say to them now, like there's people getting behind them, and I wonder how many sort of Protestants or people from a loyalist background have decided to secretly vote for Sinn Féin, because I don't think you probably speak on that like within Northern Ireland at all. But we'll come on to that. I want to just like bring a next thing in here, which is this. So from a tweet at Peter Cook, when it comes to the question of the Armalite of the ballot box has won. After 100 years of elections, a nationalist party has won the most votes in Northern Ireland, and that to be Sinn Féin. That's a little bit stretched, that tweet, but you get the general point. So the general reaction was interesting, and it's been interesting. I mean, obviously, there's the standard sort of DUP response, which is, as you would expect, being their sworn enemies. We're not going to form a government with them in Stormont, etc., etc., etc. So it'll be interesting to see which way that one goes. Just moving on slightly, further reaction. And it's not going in the stream or whatever. Here it is. Professor Paul Bernal, that's at Paul Bernal UK. No, Sinn Féin's victory hasn't reignited Brexit problems. Those problems never went away. The reverse. Brexit reignited Northern Ireland's problems because those behind Brexit couldn't give a toss about Northern Ireland, or in some cases worse than that. So what I'd like to do is, there was something that was denied, sort of like we've seen the Corbyn video from the 80s and ongoing from there. It was almost, just straight up denied for a long time, and then alluded to when people were pressed, like how Northern Ireland itself was designed. So what I've done is I've pulled up a short clip from Gerry Adams, and I've edited it in with a clip from this week. I'm really keen to know what you think of this.
At the moment, loyalism, right? Who are prepared.
They're a majority, of course, in Northern Ireland.
But if you carve up a country, anybody can be a majority.
A nationalist party has topped the poll. That has never happened before.
Right, 2 seconds. It's done it again. StreamYard, I'm going to get in touch with, because I swear to you that video plays. I'm going to play it again, and I'm going to do the voice of Gerry Adams, much like the actors used to do back in the day.
I was going to say, it's just like the 80s.
Yeah, it's like the 80s when they got the voice actors in.
Yeah.
I'm going to really try and do this and give it some justice. Bear with us, right? Right, 3, 2, 1.
At the moment, loyalism, right? Who are prepared.
Sinn Féin is a legitimate political party.
If you carve up a country, anybody can be a majority.
A nationalist party has topped the poll. That has never happened before in the 101-year history of Northern Ireland's existence. Northern Ireland was literally designed, its borders were designed so that that wouldn't happen, so that there would be an inbuilt unionist majority. And indeed, if you top up the unionist parties, they're still on top. If you put the DUP together, and you put the UUP together, and you put the TUV together, a relatively new party, they still have a plurality of the vote, but the fact that you have a nationalist party coming top really does transform the political landscape in Northern Ireland, not least because, theoretically, if there is going to be an executive, Sinn Féin will have the right to nominate a First Minister.
So, the first part of the video that didn't work there, just Sinn Féin is indeed a legitimate political party, by the way. Yeah, keep laughing. That's basically how they would have the voice actors. Like, Sinn Féin is a legitimate political... They would have them doing it like Reverend Ian Paisley, not the second version. So basically... the first clip was Gerry Adams, and what he was saying back in the 80s, around about the time the Corbyn clip happened and the Corbyn stuff was going on, that Northern Ireland was designed to keep out him and the Republican movement from ever assuming power. It then goes on from a clip with Newsnight this week where the BBC are saying live that is the case. I think that's pretty monumental stuff, which kind of like... amongst certain circles, it's been picked up, but it's not been widespread put out there. The presenter on the BBC is saying that it was designed to keep that out. Is that democracy, Alice?
Oh God, no, absolutely not.
Bit of a rhetorical one.
No, that second clip was just absolutely wild, because it's the kind of thing that you could. The way he kind of says it, and he's explaining things, it could easily just go over your head. But then you actually kind of, knowing a little bit about, about the history, about, you kind of think, what has he just said? Like, it's kind of, when we talk about saying the quiet part out loud, that is literally basically what happened there. It was like, no, it was designed so that this wouldn't happen.
Yeah, exactly.
And it has, and how is this? And this hasn't happened in, I think it's 101 years, is it?
Oh, it's a long time. I know that. I don't know if I don't know if it's 101 or whatever, but I mean, absolutely crazy. And I mean, given the fact that it was actually designed that way, something in a wider sense that I'd like to point out as well, the SNP in Scotland, the whole system there was designed. I mean, that was more of a knowing thing. That's not a historical thing. It was designed to stop one party getting a majority like the SNP have got. You all right? You're choking a bits there. Are you good? If you're on the audio, I'll just describe what's happening. Alice is choking her face off.
The joys
Are you all
of
right there, hun?
when you just swallow tea the wrong way, that's just what happens.
Yeah.
I swear I'm not still laughing over Jerry Adams' voice.
No problem. Right, reminds what I was just talking about there. You can't remember, can you?
No.
You and your coffin ruining me flow.
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. The SNP. Oh, that was it. The SNP. The way that was designed for the Holyrood elections, it was designed so the SNP couldn't assume, or anybody couldn't assume an overall majority to the level the SNP have. Within the people don't know this who they don't follow this stuff, but within the Republican movement, right? The Armalite and ballot box strategy was scrapped just for the ballot box strategy, because the general gist was that people who are Catholic, which tend to be more on the Sinn Féin type of side, were having more children. So it was a case of over a period of time, eventually we'll get a united Ireland through peaceful means. Now, what that did within the Republican movement, there was a lot of people who saw that as a sellout. So, when you have the Real IRA and other groups who are relatively active, from a violence standpoint, a lot of that came from that. Jerry Adams is seen very differently in different sections of the Republican movement. Some sections of the Republican movement see him as kind of a Mandela figure. Others see him as a kind of a traitorous figure, So I wanted to put that in because a lot of people think it's all one homogenous block, and it's absolutely not. There's a lot of different groups. There's obviously a more socialist version of the IRA called the INLA. I don't know if they're still going, actually. Loads of different subgroups and whatnot. So the top and bottom of it is, do you think where do you think this is going from your perspective? What do you think? Because I mean, I follow this, and you've said yourself before when on you don't as much. So I'm dead interested to hear where you think this is going to go.
I think it's a really tough one, actually, because you kind of I was watching it, and it does kind of make you feel really hopeful, I think. And I think there is potential for a lot of good things to kind of come from that. But as with all elections and all with parliaments, nothing's as simple as that. It's not a case of, we're going to put this guy in and this is how things are going to run. There's and I have been reading up a little bit about that, about how it works, and it's so different to ours, actually, that it kind of blows your mind a little bit. I did, kind of listening to other people speaking, kind of worry that, particularly over the summer, we're going to see, we'll see kind of tensions rise, rise in Ireland. Before that, not so much the troubles starting again, but more kind of young lads, kind of street violence and things happening, which has been known. Do they call them? Is it referred to the summer nights as the white nights, coming in and when things?
Well, it tends to be around marching season.
Right, okay.
The Orange Order want to march near predominantly Catholic areas. Obviously, the people within those areas see that as a provocation. So that's where a lot of these clashes come from.
Yeah. And then you've got the DUP leader Jeffrey Donaldson as well, who's still kind of trying to deal with the fallout of the Northern Ireland Protocol. And
we're coming to that. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, so he's dealing with that, and now is looking at the prospect of having to also sort of negotiate with Sinn Féin in all of that. I do have occasionally watched like Irish Parliament on TV, and it can be a bit spicy. It's if you've never done it before, I do recommend.
Fuck you, Deputy Stag.
Yeah, honestly, it's absolutely.
Deputy Stag's an absolute the Deputy Stag guy's a legend, isn't he?
So I think I will be tuning in give it more just to kind of see how not just for the purpose of educating myself, but just really to see how this whole thing is going to. How it's all going to pan out, really. Yeah.
Definitely, yeah, without a doubt. Well, you did mention it, so we'll move on to the sort of next bit of this section.
I was about to say something else about it, but I thought I'd wait and see.
Yeah, there's a tweet from Michelle O'Neill, who's one of the leaders of Sinn Féin. She's a leader of Sinn Féin in Northern Ireland, essentially. Delighted to have our new Sinn Féin team at Stormont. We must appoint a First Minister, a Deputy First Minister, and form an executive to deliver real change. The executive can act to invest an extra $1 billion in our health service and allocate over $330 million to support workers and families. Just a quick note on that before I move on to the next slide. There's a potential, well, more than a potential schism with the DUP on whether DUP is actually going to agree to form a government with them. I've seen some interviews, possibly with Jeffrey Donaldson, actually, and it didn't look good. So moving on, Patrick Maguire from The Times today, exclusive in The Times. Liz Truss will move to scrap most of the Northern Ireland Protocol in law next week. While not included in the Queen's speech, that was today, legislation unilaterally removing need for Irish sea checks is written and ready. Ministers have been warned, move will spark EU trade war. Where do you think this one's going to go?
Tell me, right, this is where I've been reading about this, and this is where I get really confused, because they were talking about a border like in the middle of the sea and sea checks, and I was like, how would that even work? How do you do that? Because I know that obviously the prospect of a land border, I think both Sinn Féin and the DUP, probably the one thing they agree on is that would be an absolute catastrophe.
It would be a catastrophe from a political and standpoint and relations between communities, but also from a technical standpoint, it's a little bit like Trump trying to build a wall, like to try and put a border there. There's 330 something crossing points between the north and the south of in Ireland. Okay. So because the border isn't a straight line, it goes like that. Sorry, I just wanted to clarify. Carry on.
So how does the sea border work? I don't even understand.
Well, the backstory to that is, right, in the negotiations with Frost and whatever, I think they acknowledged, because they had limited time to get it through. I mean, you remember it was announced on Christmas Eve, the Brexit deal, wasn't it? This so-called oven-ready deal. They were just basically, knew if they were to try and have any kind of like land border or any kind of customs checks, those border patrols or border like guards, whatever, were just going to get attacked. There's no doubt in my mind that would kick things off. It's a provocation to the Republican movement or the armed Republican movement. So, you're going to have problems. So the sea border was a kind of fudge. I think they knew they would always have to come back to it. And this is what they're saying now. But they're doing the blame game, and it's like the EU, and it's the EU's fault, and that's where it's going to go. But obviously, it's like this whole gunboat diplomacy thing again. Boris Johnson needs more hell on, basically, because he's trying to keep his job. I mean, I think if you remember, there's like a show a couple of months ago, I said that if he was going to go, it would be after the local elections, which will obviously come on to in a bit, so I don't want to get too deep. But it hasn't happened, has it? So I would suggest that they're going to just brazen this out. And this is coming from that. So in terms of the sea border thing and the sea checks and whatever, I'm not a customs official, so I don't understand how that has or hasn't been working. That demands a bit more research, but I do know it's caused an immense amount of problems in terms of like logistics. So we'll maybe do a little bit on that like in the future. So in terms of Brexit, like people are like, oh, get Brexit done. A lot of people were saying at the time, Brexit hasn't even started yet. And we're really just starting to see like the overarching effects now. And I think we would have saw them a bit sooner if COVID hadn't been a thing. But now that apparently the pandemic's over, it isn't. it's a case of they're moving on to whatever dead cat they can throw on the table, or distraction technique, or that technique that Boris Johnson's on video saying his theory is just to throw loads of things. And it's got worse and worse. Every week we have to decide what to talk about every week, and we could talk about 20 new things.
And we always have this discussion, don't we? Is like, which one's the, kind of, what are they trying to do here? Like, kind of dumping all this, trying to sift through it, trying to decide which one is the one we should be talking about, because it's the one that they don't want us to be talking about. And the complete deflection, the complete lack of, kind of accountability. I mean, it's, oh yes, it's the EU doing this. It's no, is it not centuries of colonization? Exactly what you said is, kind of Johnson trying to save his own skin by deeply insulting, the different identities in Ireland, and and toying with that. And a lot of us, and I include myself in this, kind of going, oh, Irish politics, what's going on here? Don't really, kind of don't really understand what's happening here. But I mean, even to the point of ignorance, where it was like there was this story in the paper about English tourists at the, kind of the delays that they were having at the airports, and then they got upset because they said the Irish were getting preferential treatment and were being able to kind of were going straight through. And it was like, why have you thought about why that is? Like why people with an Irish passport might have been having an easier time getting through? And it's just, but I honestly think people just don't realize. And it was kind of, put as them having special treatment. And it was like, do you not understand what this is? I mean, it blows my mind. It
crazy
blows
talk,
my mind.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Let's take some comments. Jez is in the house. Jez Hunt, I remember being worried about being blown up as a kid, and my dad said, "Don't worry, we're Welsh. They are like us." Paddy Madison's in. Evening. All right, Paddy. Jez is clarifying what you were saying. It's 101 years. Obviously, that's regarding the election result and Sinn Féin, etc. Robert Grady's in. Alice is doing shots. Jez, Alice is getting tea in her lungs like a car in Boris's garden.
You'll set me off again.
Johan Gillum is evening. Haven't resort to the phone. Internet choking like Alice. Is Turkish internet not great? Is that what we're hearing? So, Mr. Grady, United Ireland, here we come. Yes, we like this. Yeah. Paul Veronica shouts to the Belfast gang. Most Brits didn't realise that the UK had a land border with Europe, and that includes Tory ministers. True bloody story.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. That. Janine is saying deals, agreement, arrangements due to Brexit will take years, and I think will break up the UK. I fully agree. And I'm absolutely here for it. If I was an Orange County housewife, I'm here for this. for absolutely no reason whatsoever, I'm here for this. Steve Jackson, the sea border is that all goods leaving mainland GB are subject to greater customs checks. It's not in the sea, but is all ports on the west coast of Britain. As a result, it's harder to import fresh food into Northern Ireland. So Northern Irish business is aligning with the Republic of Ireland for fresh food. One more step to United Ireland. I love Steve. Every week he rocks in and just goes, here's the thing.
Thank you so much. And that actually makes much more sense. I'm like,
every week he just concisely, this is what it is.
Does a boat come up and do they swing onto the boat like pirates and check all the stuff in it? Like, how do they do this? I have a granddad who was in the Merchant Navy who would be mortified saying this.
What an absolute belter. So, I mean, in terms of like going forward, obviously there's more questions than answers as usual. But like Liz Truss is basically, well, I mean, for her, it's to put herself aside from Rishi Sunak. She's tough on this and the little Irish or something. So, if ever a leadership contest was to come up, Can you imagine her as prime minister, man? Honestly. But that's by the by. So there's internal stuff in Northern Ireland in terms of forming a government. Will the DUP just turn into utter wreckers? And then we'll see. In terms of the stuff with Brexit, the EU, the borders, things like this, it's just going to be a huge problem. You're going to start a trade war with the biggest trading bloc in the world, which is literally, 14 miles away across the channel, or whatever it is, 20 miles. Like, it's ridiculous. It's crazy. Like, just get over it, man. Like, it's that thing that, like, you know, when people are like, oh, like, we got Brexit done, we're getting Brexit done, all this. So, like, cool, you've done that, man. Just, like, crack on and start, like, building relationships across the globe. But it's all about positioning within the Tory party once again. And it's probably going to break the UK up, which, again, I'm here for it. I'm sitting, watching, laughing, like, thinking this is brilliant, fantastic. Can you imagine it? Could you imagine this? A League of Celtic Nations, Welsh independence, Scottish independence, Ireland, and they then surround England. Can you imagine?
Can any of the people? Am I allowed to go and live in one of those? Because I don't want to stay.
There's a lot of people don't know this. I think there's I think it's still in place. There's a bilateral agreement between the Republic of Ireland and the UK, where people can go over there and live and work, and vice versa. Which then means, like, a Republic of Ireland passport holder in Britain has more rights than any UK citizen who doesn't have a second passport from anywhere else.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely ridiculous stuff, isn't it? Anyway, we've said a lot about this, so hold on a minute. Jez saying, I've got a few more in. We'll get these in before we move on. Janine's saying, don't forget the Cornish. Aye, don't forget the north of England as well, Janine.
Yeah.
Like, basically, like, have it as like a city state of London, like the Medicis back in the Florence era, where they're just like completely corrupt and they're just like this mad city state that ultimately breaks up. So Colin is saying, I can hear sending the SAS chants already. You're not too far wrong, pal. Not too far wrong at all. Right. That's the island situation. Just to close it off, we'll be returning to this again and again, because I personally think it's far more interesting than bullshit English politics between, like, two cheeks of the same arse.
I've seen,
you know what I'm saying?
It's one of those things I've seen very little of, so I found that really interesting, getting informed about that by yourself and by the other people commenting as well.
Definitely.
Because you see very little of it. Obviously, I knew the results of the election, but kind of what the implications of that were beyond that, very, very little, because...
Huge. Absolutely huge. I mean, you know, just to... I'll say this bit for a minute or so. Do you know the last, like, Irish Republic of Ireland elections? Do you know what occurred? Sinn Féin, I think, was the biggest party by vote share by about 1% or something. And Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael are basically kind of Lib Dems and Tory equivalents, but it's not quite a direct scan. So basically, they formed a government, cutting Sinn Féin out, so they formed like a coalition government. So it's kind of like politically, it's kind of like Starmer's Labour and the Tories forming a government. Not a complete fit, but similar, just to keep out Sinn Féin. Because Sinn Féin could have formed a government. And here's the thing. People in Northern Ireland maybe start waking up to the fact that the Republic has more to offer than the United Kingdom. We'll leave it on that one. So what I'd like to move on to now is, quite recently, Alice and I spoke with Just Stop Oil. We're going to put a little clip in. It's going to be available this week for patrons, the full thing, and next week, general release. So have a deeks at this. So do you want to tell us a little bit about Just Stop Oil? Like, what is it, how it was formed, and what the aims are?
For sure, yeah. Just Stop Oil is basically a coalition of different groups that have coalesced around a very simple demand, which is no new oil infrastructure and no new oil developments. Which at the moment the government is ploughing ahead with 42 new oil developments in the North Sea, which is somewhat counter to some of their proclamations that they made at COP26 about being leaders on the climate. So we have stepped into civil resistance effectively. History shown time and again that the most effective means of bringing about the kind of societal shift that we need to see and the sort of time frame that we have left is through civil resistance. So that's what we're doing basically.
Great stuff. So for people who don't know what civil resistance is that the same as direct action?
Effectively, yeah. I mean, it's all part of the same sort of sphere of things, basically. But yeah, we're effectively putting our, rather than sort of trying to draw attention to particular issues, we're putting our bodies in the way of the thing that's destroying all of our futures, basically.
Full episodes are available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. You can also support our work via Patreon and PayPal. Cheers. Oh, we're back. Can you hear us?
I can.
Great. I love James. What a lovely lad he is, isn't he?
He is.
Just Stop Oil lad.
Worth a watch.
Also, like other things you'll find out in that episode, he's just got out of Belmarsh. He's got a tag on his leg. Him and others like him, absolute heroes. Don't believe what's going on in the papers and how they're being slandered and smeared, but also find out what he has to say about all that stuff as well. How he took all that and his stride was just immense. So big up that lad. James is a good one. Are you there?
I am.
Good. I'll move on then, shall I? Local election results then, shall we? Right.
Let's talk about
what we got. So shouts to Stats for Lefties. New final election figures show Labour gained just 11 seats in England outside of London. Tories lost 256 seats. Lib Dems gained 159. Greens 56. Very distinctly, that is outside of London. Overall local election results, net seat changes, Labour up 108, Conservative down 487, Lib Dems up 222, SNP up 22, Plaid Cymru down 6, Green 87, and Aspire plus 24. So, Alice, initial reactions to that?
Well, when you look at the figure, it's one of those things is when you look at the figures, that kind of deviates a little bit from the headlines we've seen, where you'd think like Labour have swept the board. And that's kind of not really the story that we've seen there. A bigger story, I'm not sure we've got the exact figures for the nation overall yet. Please, somebody correct me if I'm wrong. But what the voter turnout was. Because I've been looking at individual wards, like across different parts of the country, mainly the northeast, but other parts, and it has been largely dire. Seeing numbers like 22% turnout. It's been even lower than that in some areas. So you think like people haven't been coming out, and why? Because who do you vote for? People are absolutely sick. And in amongst everything that's been going on, you've had like the two major parties spending more time kind of saving face and justifying what they were doing over lockdown and trying to pretend that it was all okay. The Food Foundation this week also announced that 2 million adults have gone without food for one day or more within the last month. When people are that's 2 million people. That was the biggest story for me. And when you think there's 2 million adults that we know of who have been in that situation, or have been trying to stop themselves from being in that situation, when you're fighting to try and meet your most very basic needs, are you going to be going out to vote? I mean, there was one picture, I think it was, I don't know if the polling station was in a school, they often are, or if it was in some kind of community building, but there was like two sides to it. So there was like two arrows, and one sign said polling station, and the other arrow was pointing for the food bank. And that kind of really said more about the state that we're in at the moment in this country. So yeah, the Greens did pretty well, as I thought they would. I know they've got another 3 councillors in South Tyneside, so that takes them to
Great
to
news.
6.
Yeah.
That takes them to 6 councillors in total. I've got to say, the Lib Dems was a bit of a surprise to me. I didn't realise people were voting Lib Dem anymore. I thought they were still out of favour after their disastrous. I thought their name was still mud after the coalition government. But obviously they've got over 150 more seats now, and I think the Conservatives have swan dived, and Labour have got a few more seats, but it was 11. They got 11 more seats, so which isn't quite as well as what we've been led to believe.
Well, indeed, and I mean, the whole narrative around Starmer and around when he was brought in, he's supposed to be an electable figure, safe pair of hands. How's that working out for you? Because clearly, these results are in. He is not who. Is he more electable than Corbyn? Let's delve deeper, shall we? So this thing you see on the screen is from an email that Keir Starmer sent round internally in Labour, and it was leaked or whatever. So this is a turning point for Labour. After a decade of decline, we are on course to win the next election. Now let's unpack what the hell he's talking about. So Alex Nuns was I think he was a Corbyn speechwriter. What he's responding to is a decade of decline bears no relation to Labour's local election results over that period. And of course, pretends 2017, obviously the general election, where Corbyn was just over 2,000 votes spread out over a few constituencies from being Prime Minister. And of course, pretends 2017 didn't happen. Biggest increase in vote share since the war. First parliamentary seats gained since 1997. And second highest number of votes in England ever. That was Corbyn in 2017. So, as we can see, a decade of decline, according to Keir Starmer this week. Matt Thomas at Tricky Jabs on Twitter. This has gone under the radar a bit with all the other local election results, but in the 6 mayoral elections that had an incumbent, Labour's average vote share, 2018 was 53.8%, 2022 was 46.0%. Labour's average vote share fell minus 7.8% under Starmer compared to under Corbyn. I refuse to say whoops at the end of things. I don't know why. It just leaves us a bit cringed. Also, as well, this picture, I'll describe for the audio people. It's Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer today, just before the Queen's speech, having a wonderful moment, smiling at each other in the middle of Beergate and all of this carry on. Like it's all one big bloody joke for the two friends. Fuck right off. So we've unpacked a little bit more of it, right? 2 cheeks, same arse. That picture at the end there. Yeah, stick it up again. Have a look at this, right?
No, it's just
look at that.
This.
That was today. Boris. Yeah. It's also funny, isn't it? Yeah. We're all in a bit of a pickle, aren't we?
Afterwards, Keir.
Absolute bell ends, the pair of them.
Yeah, no, they really are. And this is kind of what gets me about elections as well. You know, when you do have low voter turnout like that, is somebody will still get in. And I know it was a local election that we had, and that kind of that looks slightly different to the general elections. But look at any other job. If you have a bunch of candidates for a job, and they all turn up for interview or whatever, and they are all completely unsuitable and absolutely awful people. What happens? You don't go, oh, well, we've got to recruit one of them. No, that often doesn't happen. It goes, right, okay, we're going to, none of these people are fit for purpose. We're going to re-advertise until that doesn't happen in politics. It's absolutely wild. It's like some wanker will get in. And this is why it isn't fit for purpose. These results that we've got for the most part, for almost every single ward, aren't necessarily reflective of, of what people of what people want. I think, there's a couple of the results which have, shown, given a snapshot of, kind of a change in tone. And I do think the ones in South Tyneside are maybe, reflective of that. They've interviewed people about that who just saying, well, Labour see us as a safe choice. And actually nothing's really happening for us at the minute, so we're going to do something different. And I think, so you are kind of seeing a snapshot of public mood in some of the results, but for the most part it's just utter apathy. Utter apathy,
yeah, I mean, apathy won the election.
People are tired, people are exhausted, people are trying to find something to eat that day. That's the state we're at in the UK at the moment, and it's not good enough.
Look, honestly, I say this all the time, like it's becoming my friggin' catchphrase or something. What do any of these people do for the millions of people that are living in poverty and the millions more who are being dragged into it by an ineffective opposition and, well, the Tories? The Tories are the Tories. We're not covering the Tories as much because the Tories are the Tories. I think there's a real problem at the moment where people are so tired, as you say, and if they do go out and vote, then they're like, well, only Labour can defeat the Tories. So somebody said to us today, first job, get the Tories out. Second job, get Starmer out or something. And this was in response to a direct question. I've asked a few people this today, and I'm never given an answer. Like, what's the strategy for the millions of people in poverty during the cost of living crisis, this, that, and the third? It'll eventually touch your door. And the answer is not centre or centre-right Keir Starmer's Labour. It offers nothing for everybody. Somebody even said to us today, let's just finish this. Somebody even said to us today that we're never going to wipe out poverty, so just vote for Labour. And I'm like, you're not really selling this to us, mate. Like, I'm not just going to forget about all of these people living in poverty. Like, to me, and I've said this before, people have names, and we know a lot of them because we were like decades-long community workers, and it's like, I wouldn't have needed that anyway to humanize people. Do you know what I mean? People are humans, and people need to be given opportunities to get on in life. The Tories always talk about meritocracy and all of this shit, and it's a load of bollocks, man. Like, there's people don't start on the same like part of the race. You're going to win the race if you start with a lot of money and you start with a lot of like connections and networks and privileges. I mean, you've just got to look at like journalism, for example. Giles Corran, his father, look into who he was. Hugo Rifkind from the Times. You're laughing because of that back and forwards that I had with him a little while ago, aren't you?
That's exactly what I'm laughing at.
Yeah, I love that. I absolutely destroyed the fucker, but never mind. Even though I do say so myself. Arsehole. Son of Malcolm Rifkind. Look at who he is. We could go on. There's so many examples of the nepotism. And what that means is like in terms of journalism, as I just take a slight off-piece turn, journalism, like the courts and like everything else, is one of the only things we've got left which can hold these bastards to account. But if it's stuffed with the Corrans and the Rifkins of this world, that's not going to happen. They're just stenographers for the establishment. Alice, what do you think?
I think the comment that you said about the person who said, oh, well, we're never going to eradicate poverty, so just vote Labour, that kind of shows that that sort of attitude is somebody who just is, it's all about just like a particular team winning. It's like, it's almost like cheering for a football team rather than actually, dreaming of a better life, of something better than what is happening. That is what is happening to us all at the minute. And it's never, for all, people who were voting Labour in the 2019 election were called like Corbynites and no, it's you're missing the point. You're missing the point. It's never just about Jeremy Corbyn. It absolutely shouldn't have been.
Well, it wasn't in his mind, and it wasn't in his voice either, because he said it.
It wasn't, and he did say it, to be fair to him as well. It's about, no, we can do things a little bit better and despite what we know happened at the 2017 election, that didn't happen, and I'm really baffled as to why. Maybe if I don't know, maybe if the Ford report came out or something like that, maybe we might
The
have
Ford
a better
report.
idea. Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. Well, exactly. It's something I've heard it mentioned once or twice, but yeah, I'm not sure if they're going to drop that season on Netflix or what is it? Like, anyway, well, when are we going to see it? Where is it?
It's not coming, is it? It's like
It was deliberately sabotaged.
Here's a question for you, right? Like, I mean, I'm not expecting you to give us a long answer. It's just like, it's sort of, why aren't the Tories like constantly at them about the Ford report? Why isn't that a line of attack?
That's interesting.
I'm going to speculate because I know you don't like to be surprised, right? What I'm saying, I think it is it served the establishment's agenda, and they're worried about what will come out as a result of it. It seems to be completely stepped on, and it was a surprise at first as to, like, I mean, it's like low hanging fruit. Have a go at them from the Tory end to Labour. Like, where's this Ford report? Like, your Starmer's putting himself over as some honest integrity type person. Well, show it.
And if it all kicks off and Keir Starmer ends up resigning, I mean, even this thing about the whole him being investigated over Durham, he said that if he ends up getting fined, he'll resign then. I don't think the Tories want that. I don't think that. I think they would kind of panic a little bit. I think it quite suits them having Keir Starmer in as the Labour leader at the moment. I saw that I saw the odds. Like they put the odds of like who would be next Labour leader if that was going to happen, and just saw the list of names that were underneath it. And you know, people saying who would you want to win? You know, if Keir Starmer was that, and I looked at that list and it was like asking me to pick my favourite Mumford and Sons song. It was like, you know, it was had like Wes Streeting, you know, Angela Rayner, Lisa Nandy, and I just thought, oh God, no, like, you know, Wes Streeting it sticks in my throat in particular.
He's a little dick. You know, that's why.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You see him a mile off.
So yeah, I do think it suits the Conservative, but I think they would panic a little bit if there was suddenly going to be a new Labour leader. Who it would be, I've got no. I couldn't even hazard a guess.
Can I tell you though? Like, ultimately, in my heart, I really don't fucking care who takes over Labour next, because it's not going to be anybody who's going to do anything for us. You know, like Wes Streeting's going to be worse than Starmer, in my opinion. Starmer appears to be the placeholder which eradicates the left. And I mean, I don't know if you saw that Mandelson interview recently where he was basically saying as much.
Yeah, I did see that. I did. He was quite. He didn't even try and dress it up in any other way. But even if there was, you know, there's still a couple of people within the Labour Party who I've got a lot of time for. And I think even, you know, not that I think that they would win a bid for Labour leader, but just say by some miracle that they did. Well, we've already seen they don't want, you know, and an example of that, I like Zara Sultana. I do. I've got a lot of time for Zara Sultana. If you know,
Same.
and it would never happen. But if she was to win, they'd do this. They'd do the same to anybody who had even a shred of decency as to what they did to Jeremy Corbyn. The system isn't fit for purpose. We know this.
They already do it to Zara and any woman of colour, basically. I mean, it's an absolute disgrace. Also, she might get deselected. You know, all the things that we were saying, like when Corbyn was in, like deselect all the wreckers and all of this, carry on, but it was never done. Well, it's like, I would not be surprised what's coming next. I don't know if you saw the John McDonnell interview today.
No.
Honestly, like, you know, recently how I was like, I had a meeting with John recently, and it was all like, you know, I've got a lot of time from all that.
Yeah.
Just watch that the day. He even says like Starmer has like honesty and integrity, and I'm like, John, you know, I know you know better than that. So it was just like,
oh dear, yeah.
Whoa. I don't know what bite's been put on him, but forget about the Socialist Campaign Group. It's basically a bunch of letter writers and angry tweets.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If we want to talk about honesty and integrity, like given what appears to be occurring, which is full eradication of the left, then head it off at the pass and resign the Labour whip and stand as an independent in the next election. Please. Like, you know, but it's not really about that, is it? And I mean, I said the other week, I'd rather have people like that in than not, but that all changed today. I was just like, I've got to be honest. Might be awkward if I have a meeting with him again. He sees this, but what can I do? That's true, though, isn't it? Like, yeah, I mean, what am I going to do? Like, not say the truth? Like,
you would say exactly the same to his face.
Well, you know, I would, but that's by the by. So it's kind of like, I was really disappointed because I was hanging on to us because he's a nice lad. He really is. Really is, you know, he's a good bloke, but just no, I saw cowardice today and I didn't like it. But again, we don't know what bite's being put on these people, so who bloody knows? Anyway, I'm conscious of time. So that's the basic gist of the local elections crack. We'll definitely be coming back to this because I mean, it's, you know, it's getting quite interesting. But I want to hear some positive news. You've got some positive news for, haven't you?
I've got some positive news for you as well. And it kind of does tie in a little bit with what we've just been talking about as well. So I think it's a good one. I definitely think it's a good one to go with.
So I'll just let people know what this is. So it's from the Big Issue. These people are levelling up their area by renovating derelict homes and renting them out on the cheap. Community group East Marsh United have already renovated 3 homes and rented them out to families at social rent. They now want to raise $500,000 to do up 10 more homes and boost the struggling Grimsby suburb. That might actually be the Grimsby suburb that I went to a away game. It was with Gateshead. It was the playoffs like a few years ago. And I swear to God, like we're parked on this estate next to the ground, and there was a shotgun bullet hole in the window, and it was the spiciest walk at an away game I've ever had from the car to the ground. And I'll bring you back in a minute, but like seriously, when we left, right, I'd drank 3 pints of wine in the ground. I'd fallen over when we're like all kinds of shit, and we realized there was 4. We had to walk from there through all the Grimsby lot to our car while our coach was getting bricks chucked at it just over the road.
Jesus,
it was horrific. Anyway, that's my Grimsby story. Tell us more about this.
First of all, you drank 3 pints of wine. Are you Shane McGowan? Like,
well, this is the problem that I've got. If I can't get a gluten-free beer or Heineken, which is like a mass-produced one, then I have to drink wine.
Yeah,
and I was just like, away game, fuck it, give us a pint.
And
they did 3 times.
Well, actually, I think it might possibly be the same area because the football club does come into a little bit to this.
Oh, interesting. Right. Okay.
It does. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. So it's a local group called East Marsh United who have basically, this is like a really like East Marsh is a very rundown area of Grimsby that has been really hard hit by austerity over the last 10 years. How the group started was in 2017, and it basically formed with a meeting with locals and local councillors, and the locals kind of saying they're really worried about kind of stuff that's happening in the area, all the antisocial behaviour, all the deprivation, and kind of basically like begging for help, from the local councillors, and no solutions to what was going on was put forward. Now there was a member of the public in that meeting, a guy called Billy Design, who is now like one of the I think he's one of the board members of what has now become East Marsh United. And he talked, he stood up and talked. He's an academic. He talked a little bit about broken windows theory, which can be applied a little bit controversially. So broken windows theory was developed in the 1980s with the idea being that, signs of crime and disorder and deprivation will make crime rates go up and more serious.
Was
crimes.
this what Giuliani brought in New York, the broken windows thing.
Yes, it is.
Was it Giuliani? I think it was.
It was definitely in New York. So yeah, I think it will have been Giuliani. Now that is, if you've heard about broken windows theory in that context, it's probably not as favourable. That isn't what's been happening in Grimsby. What happened in New York is that they decided that they were going to get the police to really aggressively target people like panhandlers and sex workers, saying that by doing that and like removing homeless people, by doing that it will make crime rates go down because it'll prevent more serious crimes like murder and rape, which are things crimes that people are more worried about. And there was maybe some suggestion that murder rates did go down in New York at that time, but really what they're doing is they're targeting people who are already vulnerable, the police very, very aggressively, and they're just shifting them to a different area. They're not actually providing any solutions. They're just moving those people on to somewhere else. It doesn't really do any good. So yeah, what happened in New York is not so great. What they did in Grimsby, it was really just take it literally. Really, okay, well, we've got broken windows. Let's go and tackle the broken windows and make the place look nice. So that'll having a nicer looking area will bring crime rates down, make people feel better about themselves in the area they live in. So they went out with bin bags and brushes and spades, and they just, instead of begging for help from local politicians, they just decided to do it themselves, and that's what they did. And it kind of went from there to just like basic street cleaning and sorting stuff out to doing up these 3 properties, which they've done, sort of fixed them all up, made them nicer. These were boarded up like derelict properties, and they now have 3 families living in social, like local housing allowance
rates. That's amazing,
well,
man.
So that they are affordable. So as we saw in the headline there, they're now trying to raise another $500,000. They've got plans to do this with another 10 houses there, so they can have even more families in there as well. The chairman partner Jason Stockwood of the football club as well has also, for every 100,000 the group raises, pledged a 10,000 to that. So he'll
really,
so when if they raise 100,000, he'll give them 10, and so on once they raise another 100,000 and everything like that. So they're kind of getting loads of support there. And I'm absolutely here for it, because we talk a lot about organizing yourselves and doing things ourselves. Now this is a group who really are doing that, and they're doing it well and showing, okay, so we've tried to, we voted these councils in, nothing's changing. I'm not actually sure which political party has got control of East Marshall or Grimsby. I'm not sure. I forgot to look that up before.
Off the top of my head, I think there's kind of like this flux going on between Tories and Labour, and I think there's councils are Labour and there's a Tory MP, or vice versa. I can't remember. But
that sounds about right. It's I think from what I understand of East Marsh, it was a thriving, like many coastal places, was a thriving fishing area. Has been really, really hard hit by that. The fishing industry was one of the big sort of arguing points in the whole Brexit thing, because the fishermen were having the fishing industry was having a really hard time before Brexit, and lots of promises were made, and things are still pretty grim for them. No matter who is winning elections, no matter who is in power, people are still really suffering. And the crime rates in East Marsh were sky high. Now it would be interesting to see what happens with those crime rates. That see if they if they do start to go down. And like I have been having a look, I'm not sure there's any numbers around that at the moment, but it will be one to watch really, really closely, because that's where you can say broken windows theory has been applied holistically and compassionately. And I bang on about gentrification on this show a lot as well, and you have to kind of think, well, there has to be another option, because we don't, I don't like gentrification. Other people like it very much. I don't, because it does the same thing as Giuliani did. It's just kind of pushing the poorest and the most marginalized out rather than solving any of the solutions. It doesn't make things any better, and then it just makes the whole, an entire area the pick of property developers and corporations, which really isn't a good thing. There has to be a third option or another option, and this, is showing real promise at being that by, kind of making areas nicer, not having slums anymore, but making it affordable for the people who are living there and giving them a decent place to live. And I love it. I absolutely love it.
I think it's tremendous. Jez just said there, more of this. I agree, Jez, indeed. I mean, this is the thing. I mean, people are like, I'll come back to what, like, because I haven't written very much recently because, I've been like ill and also like tore like most of me back, so I just haven't. But I wrote a bit today, and the responses were kind of interesting around this. It's like when I'm asking people like, what's your strategy for the millions of people living in poverty? People asking me like, what are you doing? Or like, what other strategies do you think could happen? Well, this is a prime example, isn't it? And we've said this so many times. Like, the voting is a thing you do once in a while, and then you forget about it, and then that's that. Like, if you can say that. You can say that to us if you're doing stuff every day. We're at this every fucking day. And I'm not trying to be all like, oh, you can't say shit to us. But you can't say shit to us if you're going to do it with bad energy. So it's kind of like, these are the type of things that like we've been involved in over the years, either through work or through activism or just in our local communities. It's an ongoing thing. And our send love and respect to the people of East Marsh United and the Sound, a brilliant community group who are doing a magic amount of stuff there.
And by their own sort of words, they kind of said, when we first started, we didn't know what we were doing. This isn't it was a, like a construction group or anything like that. It was just like, oh God, yeah, we just decided to start, picking up some rubbish, and it's kind of went from there. But then, they've got more people on board as well. And because they've been able to fundraise as well, they've not only, provided this housing as well, they've also managed to employ people as well. So it's just, they just kind of keep generating kind of good things and doing it all themselves, which is absolutely mint.
Brilliant stuff. Janine Parton-Shart, not just antisocial, but be interested if education and health improved. Indeed, all of these different metrics over time would be very interesting. And also, Robert is saying, can you please put a link to the fundraising? Yes, do you know it off the top of your head?
I don't know it off the top of my head, sorry, but I will.
No worries. Well, I'll try and edit it into the description of this particular episode, Robert, or I'll just share it on the page, mate, so keep an eye out.
I'll put it in the comments of this thing, and then we'll put it on other things as well. Yeah.
Happy days. Well, if you put it in the comments of... Cool. If you put it in the comments of the YouTube video, then I'll pin it, and then it'll be there forever. Thank you very much. Please comment, rate, subscribe, do all the good things that we like. Become a patron and gain instant access to the chat forum. Patreon.com/Cow Daily. Get right amongst it. As I said earlier, Just Stop Oil going up there this week and general release next week. And there'll be one next week and general release. And that's how it'll go. Blah, blah, blah. So happy bloody days. I've cracked the editing thing. I'm really enjoying it. It's took us months to get to this level, but it's cool.
It looks great. Honestly, the fact that you've done it all yourself is even better. No, it's
been very, very hard to learn. I'm not gonna lie. Like, it's just been hard, but it's one of them things that's really hard when you start out, but then it gets easy later. But it was just much later this time. But like, it's really good. I've switched editing software. Anyway, we should bring this to a close. I'm in a really hot room, and we're going to lie on the grass outside. Thanks for being here, Alice. Always a pleasure. I'm pleased you're looking well. Shouts to everybody around you. I hope they get well soon.
Yes.
And have you had your food? Because I'm about to go and absolutely destroy a plate of fish.
Oh God, I always eat before I do this. You would not. I mean, I know I struggle to make sense sometimes, but believe me, if I hadn't eaten, you'd know about it.
Well, I'm deep in the intermittent fasting game. I'm 5 weeks in. I've lost a stone.
Yeah.
Sorry, just under a stone. 12 pounds. I think it's 14. That's a stone in it.
Well done. I just can't seem to do it. I am looking. I can't do like intermittent fasting. I am just kind of watching calories and watching what I drink at the minute because I had 2 weeks annual leave and basically just ate and drank my way through it. And now I am Alison Gaines. Feeling absolutely poorly at the minute. So just trying to have a bit more exercise and healthier eating.
I'll be straight. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was done. I was just saying I'll
just be straight up with you. Like it was like the amount of weight I was carrying. It's like I've never been able to get it off since my operation, my spinal surgery, and it's just like I just got to the point now where I'm just like, fuck this. I have to get it off because it's been affecting my self-esteem. It's been affecting how I feel about myself to a pretty deep level, to be honest. And I see this getting back to like me fitness previously as like a really big priority for us because I'm just not as happy as I could be.
No, and I think that's the right time to take action when it is affecting your self-esteem. I'm definitely not as hung up on it as I used to be when I was younger. I don't, I kind of think, well, we're not meant to be exactly the same weight all the time, so it's all right. It's as long as I'm, feeling, as long as I'm feeling healthy, and I know when I'm not. I know when I'm kind of overdoing it, and know when to kind of start looking after myself a little bit more, and just try not to sweat it in between.
Yeah, I've tried all that, mate, but it just doesn't work, and I felt horrible. I felt unhealthy, like mentally and physically as well. And I think it's like I must have been pre-diabetic. Like that winter in Shetland where you couldn't go outside. I just was eating and eating and eating because you go into survival mode in the subarctic, so you just eat. But like it was a really bad winter there, and you just couldn't get outside because it was gales 24/7 most of the time, and obviously that had its impact. So I've just decided now it's summer to just take control,
I think.
But anyway, sorry, go ahead.
I was just with me. It's just being more active again. Like when I wasn't able to be very active because of COVID, it was like affecting my lung capacity. It became a double-edged sword because I wasn't moving about as much, and I could feel myself getting more asthma symptoms again. Whereas now I'm starting to move more and I'm more active and being as active as I was before. My asthma's improving straight away.
Great stuff.
Thank you, Janine.
Janine, you look fab, Alice.
Oh, that's lush. Thanks.
Joanne, thanks you both. Cheers, mate. Thanks for tuning in again.
We'll see you all again.
Steve, take care, everybody in Dome Guzzle Tea. Thanks for being here, mate. Keep them all right. And the venerable Jez Hunt. Cheers, folks. Thanks everybody for tuning in. It's always appreciated, and it's always nice to have that like immediate crack with you in the comments section. So there's always more people like watch than comment. So if you haven't commented before, please get involved because like we really enjoy the crack, and I would love to have you involved in a upcoming episode.
Do. Otherwise, you'll just see me joking on screen again. So you might as well say something.
Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to end this, but I want you to stay on, right? Because I'm going to check to see whether that email that I sent to a possible guest that you thought was hilarious has been returned and what they've said. So, yeah, I know. In it, though, how Matrix-like would that be if that person agrees? We can't say any more, and I hate to be that guy, but seriously, though, how funny? How funny would that be?
Yes, that's
the very best. Joanne is saying, you are my link to the UK. Lush that, mate. Really pleased to hear that. So, I'm going to end this show, right? I am. But, like, please, Alice, just stay where you are because I hope this person's not back to it.
Leaving this chair.
How hilarious, though. Sorry if you're listening or watching. It's just one of those bloody things. But we're really kind of excited about it, aren't we? So anyway, who fancies a little bit of closing titles? Me. Bye.
Bye.
we're gone, I think. I had a